Do you like conversation on a variety of topics? Feel like no one wants to talk about the things that interest you? Tired of only hearing the same political, sports, or catastrophe talk? Yeah, we feel that way too. Join two high-functioning geeks as they discuss just about anything under the sun. We can't tell you what we'll be talking about each week because we don't know where our brains will take us. It will be an interesting conversation though, so hang on and join us. Here comes the Relentless Geekery.
Board. All right. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning. Let me get my volume up a little bit because I can't hear you as. How about that? Better?
Yeah.
Hopefully-
Can you hear me?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So we got through Halloween. We got through, and I don't want to say got through. We enjoyed Halloween. We enjoyed Thanksgiving. We enjoyed Christmas and New Year's. And now it is the best time of the year.
Why do you think that? Because a lot of people think this is the doldrums. You know what I mean? They're waiting for it to be like warm again and stuff like that. But okay.
So here's my issue. I love the holidays. I mean, that's all we've talked about for 4 months, watching horror movies, watching Christmas horror, Thanksgiving and eating and buying presents and New Year's. We'll talk about New Year's too. I love the holidays. And when my kids were little, I loved it and had a great time. It was just such a great part of the year. I always look forward to school starting because it was the next 4 months were just fantastic. And then I always got depressed in January and I could barely face the new year. So I created Star Wars month. January is Star Wars month. I listen to Star Wars music. I watch the movies. I play video games. I play board games. I read books. I read comics. I engross myself in Star Wars. Totally look forward to it. And it helps.
That's very funny. It's kind of funny. I guess it's a kind of, I like introverted things. I love going out. As you know, I love going to concerts and comedy shows and parties and stuff. But one of the things that I really like about having seasons, when I lived in places where there weren't seasons, it was very weird to be out in California for a couple of years and have it be perpetually, hey, I should be outside. I should be going for a walk. I should be taking. So I really like cabin fever type stuff. I like where, hey, I just got a bunch of books for Christmas. Let's take the time to read them instead of being, well, they go in the shelves and I hope I remember that I really wanted that when I got it,
right,
et cetera, et cetera. So it's like recharge time. And Colleen and I still get out. We for instance, we love going for a walk. And this year we're talking about finally doing cross-country skiing. I've been snowshoeing. She has not. Just getting out. We have wonderful metro parks here in Cleveland that have places that you can do that. You can rent those things there as well as have your own. But that's like getting out because the air is clear and it's brisk and stuff like that. A lot of the rest of the time, it's okay to hibernate. It's okay to get cuddly and stay in bed and read and that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I never had the doldrums. I take that back. As I've gotten older, I think I have a little bit more sad, seasonal affective disorder. There being less daylight during the day makes it just like when I wake up and it's not even light out yet, I'm logy. I'm like, oh, it sure is nice and warm in this bed. But I don't know, especially things have changed. I'm now in my 60s. When I was in school, it was that is especially college. I really loved the start of the new year and I don't know, just being outside, going to school and stuff like that. When I was in Champaign-Urbana, I used to love being there for intersession. School often didn't start up until like January 15th, but I was often down there because I was helping get ready for the MBA program, or I was already working at Garcia's, or I was doing things for Plato. And it was a magical time to be there when you had this whole campus that's built for like 35,000 students, but there's like 5K of you there.
Right.
So you could, like I used to work on Play-Doh, play games on Play-Doh. You could go and take a seat, any seat that you wanted, instead of being the crush of people in the zoo. You went to Zorba's or Hip Pocket for your gyros, and instead of being get in line and et cetera, and try to hope that by the time you get your sandwich, a seat is opened up, it was just you go into the Union, and instead of having to worry about who else is shooting pool or playing video games or pinball, you just kind of had the place to yourself. It was that Omega Man thing. And I kind of like that. If the world was like I don't know, 90% die from some plague, not COVID, of course, but it would be okay to be one of the survivors and just kind of have the place to yourself. I'm sure there's some deep psychological things there. You know what I mean?
Right.
And yet, especially that where it's not that you're just surviving in the middle of nothing. All this has already been set up, and maybe it's a little bit of the uh, Walking Dead thing where I'm sure that the sheen would wear off, and after a while you'd be like, I'm going to start scavenging. Here's hoping I find stuff that's in a working freezer in a grocery store instead of everything is now gone to hell. You know what I mean? The destroyed world is nowhere near as much fun as the it's a working world. It just doesn't have any people in it but me.
Right.
Like so.
But that's kind of a transition then too, getting back into the swing of things. I think, we need those transitions. And I honestly, I think it was a large part just kids, because I don't remember feeling that way when I was in middle school, high school, and that, or even college. I think it was started really with the kids. Just, it was that there's only so many Christmases, only so much time I'm going to have them as kids, and it started it's like, well, it's over again. What do we have to look forward to now? And I think that just started. So I made Star Wars month, and that's an awesome time.
Mention, I remember, my mom and dad are now either gone or in a diminished capacity, but we had wonderful, like between Christmas and New Year's. That's when you'd break out the jigsaw puzzles. You'd play hearts at night. You'd play like all the bowl games were on, and we'd have a little betting pool for as if we know who's going to be in the Astro Bluebonnet Bowl. But we put a little pool together that says, my mom would pick, hey, who has the fancier helmets? That kind of thing. And it was really as I got older, I guess I was often running out to spend time with friends in high school and in college. But there was like golden years, and that's of course everybody gets nostalgic about various different things. It was so nice to be in the house where, hey, there's going to be great leftovers. We can just have sandwiches anytime we want. There's still all kinds of Christmas nuts and candy and candy canes and stuff like that. And just the company of my parents, where it wasn't only being purposeful, but having a chance to just, I don't know, have the conversations, the end of year conversations with them. How's my relationship going? Of course, moms ask about that kind of stuff. And actually, my mom wasn't really pry-y about that. It wasn't always, where are my grandkids? But it was, it really was. And of course, not with just my parents. I have two brothers, and they're both brilliant and game and fun. And so we'd go sledding on the hill. And I had a best friend growing up too, from like fourth grade on. And it's really cool to just be like, what do you want to do? I don't know, but I'm coming over. And we'd he lived in a house where at Elk Grove Village at the time. He was on the edge of the village. Beyond him was prairie. Well, when you're young boys, you're like, let's go exploring the prairie. Let's see where the snow is melting. It's creating the little creeks, and we'll, can we jump over the creek, or are we going to get, totally galoshed in the water and stuff like that? And I miss some of those things. Someone on line posted that this is a liminal space.
Right.
By that means it's a transition. There's no necessary thing that has to happen. And so make use of that. Think about where you are in your life, or don't think at all. Just take advantage of the fact that you've got downtime, and you really can just wallow if you want, go running around if you want, be different or be exactly the same. Slow down. Maybe hibernation is a good thing, that once in a while we really need to just be
recharged.
I don't have anything to do, and I'm not going to look for something to do. So Colleen and I, unfortunately, we had all kinds of invitations and possibilities for tickets and stuff that we actually, between Christmas and New Year's, had a lot of things going on. We went to see a concert. We went to see, and this week it's much less. And so I have things I need to get done. I need to be looking for, a place for mom here in Cleveland instead of California. And so I have a whole bunch of appointments lined up. But that's like, an hour or two out of the day. And the rest of the time can be, hey, what did I used to do? I used to use that liminal time to like end the year, do all my filing, put my comic books away into the big collection so that everything was still A to Z, go through my books and see which ones I'd already read and see which ones I would keep out that, you kind of line up the next years, you put your on deck books and stuff like that. And I haven't necessarily applied myself in that way. So I was doing some of that here. get the laundry done, get ready for the next year where there's nothing looming over your head. Take kind of the going through stuff that you acquired is kind of like the year in review. You know what I mean? It's nice to reacquaint yourself with, wow, I don't have to go to the library. I have my own library right here. And every year I was able to just delight. I first started to collect all different kinds of stuff because the library didn't have them. You know, if you're a big Doc Savage fan, maybe James Bonds were in the library because those were like adult enough books. But all kinds of stuff growing up, I started to get them because they didn't carry Mad
Right.
Magazine paperbacks and stuff. So it was always a delight to be, and especially this is kind of, maybe this is a collector's thing, when you find a book that you bought intending to read and it just kind of went into the stacks and you're like, oh, I really, I wonder
Another discovery.
another discovery. Exactly. So there's a lot of that and the everybody has their best end of year best of lists. And so it's kind of cool to say, well, I wasn't really clued in on Barry, which is some interesting series, I think on Apple TV, about an assassin who also wants to be an actor and maybe even like a stand-up comedian. And like, and when he says, I killed last night, you don't know which he's referring to. But and it's the fact that it's not only, I don't know, to my odd taste, but that it's winning awards as one of the top 10 TV shows of the year.
Wow.
I'm reminded of what I want to put into Colleen and my queue so that we don't miss the latest Ken Burns goodness. We don't miss the latest, nowadays TV is kind of fractured. And so while I'm bopping around on Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, HBO Max, I tend to go to things I already like. Where's my next comic book movie and things like that. But it's also cool just to be aware of, like, I don't know, Colleen watched the Banshees of Inisherin.
Inisherin, yeah, I saw that.
Inisherin, thank you, Inisherin. And I must admit, I made a point of not watching it because I really thought that it would weird me out. I don't like this world of like, I've just decided not to be your friend. Or that I did something so wrong that you kind of have to stop being friends with someone, or you just say, I guess trust doesn't matter. I guess treating each other well doesn't matter. And so I this is an odd reference to make, but I really didn't watch Schindler's List for many years because I knew it would affect me. I knew that it would be terrible to see what had been going on back then, and that there really were people that were willing to step up and put themselves at risk to save some people. But there were a lot of other people that just said, yep, that's the new system. Let's kill. I didn't want to know that there's that kind of crappy people in the world. And yet it's like that. We have Nazis now. We have people that are only concerned about power now, and how many people are just willing to do terrible things. And so in some cases, like, I get enough of that in the real world. That's not
right.
My safest entertainment.
Bring on Iron Man.
Perfectly portrayed. There's great actors in it and stuff. So eventually I'll watch it because it's a great movie. And I really do want to say, my program that I did on last Wednesday night about how do you choose the best of the best?
Right.
And in some cases, it really would be kind of against my taste and my instincts to be like, I don't want the best depressing movie of all time. You know what I mean? I don't want the best ugly thing. And yet you kind of have to, as a rounded, cultured person, to go through all of human emotion, the whole range of what people go through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The Banshees, it's definitely one of those that when it was over, me and Colin went to the theater and saw it. We've been trying to do the Monday $5 day movies.
That's so smart. You have the place to yourself and hey, $5 instead of 10, 15, so okay.
And it was one of those movies, man, when it was over, we both kind of sat there and looked at each other and said, what kind of just happened? It was like overwhelmingly powerful, but we weren't even sure why and how. It was just different. We had to really let it sink in and think about it some. And I'm like, oh, okay, I need to go see some explosions next week. So for New Year's, speaking of movies, we watched one called New Year's Eve, which I had never seen. But it was advertised as basically, if you like Love Actually, you'll like this movie. It's got that similar premise of multiple storylines and people and things going on. They interweave.
Intersecting ensemble cast.
Yeah. Oh my God. Ensemble cast. There were like every scene was a cameo of somebody. It's like, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. It was like, dang.
I've never heard of it. That's interesting. I mean, it was one of those made for Canadian summer stock, and
maybe it might have been
in the summer.
So it was worthwhile. And have you heard or played the game Hive?
I don't think so. No.
That is one you should add to your list. I'll
Okay.
recommend. It is basically, it's like chess in that you have different pieces and each piece has a very specific movement. But what you're doing is you're a group of bugs trying to protect your queen bee. And so it's hexagon pieces and they move around the board. It gets formed, the pieces get connected and they move around what is the hive of the connected pieces, trying to capture the opponent's queen.
Interesting.
Now we've played it a couple times at the base set, and it's kind of like, okay, the base set is okay, but not the best. So I ordered 3 extra pieces that they put out, like DLC. And it changes. It's like, okay, no longer can you win with that one strategy because these pieces changed it. So it's a good, if you like chess, you'll probably like this. It's a twist.
And I do. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was New Year's for me.
Okay. That's we had a nice quiet New Year's. We went out to Aladdin's, which is one of our favorite local places.
Yes.
And then we went to see the not I thought it was CSO, but instead it was the Cleveland Pops Orchestra, which is a smaller version of the full CSO, but they played the music of James Bond. And they had 2 guest vocalists, so they could pull off, the Shirley Bassey and the Tom Jones. There's various different songs that are quite famous from James Bond movies. Nobody does
Simon Le Bon.
Simon Le Bon, exactly. Duran Duran did one, and it was really good. The odd thing about it was it wasn't only the music of James Bond. They threw in some things, maybe because the vocalist, it was like what they like to sing, kind of in their range or their favorites. So we heard some Frank Sinatra, and we heard, and those were actually the weaker pieces. Kind of like when you take a pop song, but you orchestrate it up, it doesn't necessarily make it better. You know what I mean? So, but the music of James Bond was very powerful. They had like the medley, the overture. They had various cool things. Everybody, they had hats and hooters for everybody, and so they had a thing they called Foyer Fest, where everybody gets to, in concert together and stuff like that, with the concert master, leading everybody with the hoot 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 hoot, and so really fun. They had a section where you could then they had both the main and the smaller lobby set up with a live band and open bar, cash bar, I should say. But I don't know, we just don't like to crush with people anymore. You know what I mean? And we're not big drinkers. And so we kind of walked through those places and we kept thinking, are we happy here? Are we comfortable? Are we going to do a little dancing? And we both just said, kind of what we do is we want to go home. We're done. We saw our thing. So we got home in time to watch the ball drop. And this was kind of we went on to our, have a Roku box, and they had a whole New Year's Eve spectacular, and they had multiple choices. The biggest one that seemed to feature the ball drop was Fox News, but it was terrible. It was all choppy. Things kept repeating itself, like whatever they had done to capture it and then show it, but try to do it in real time, but eliminating somebody in the crowd swearing or whatever else it might be. It just made it, like I said, it wasn't only choppy, it was that it would like do a 6-second segment as if I was suddenly on TikTok or Instagram or something like that, and then go into a fuller length version. And so instead of watching the ball drop over the course of that last minute, it was just all hacked up
like an action movie.
We got really too many quick cuts.
New Year's by TikTok, sponsored by your favorite social media.
Yeah, and it's funny. We almost all the time in the past, I have a whole bunch of stuff on our piano downstairs, which has kind of become our liquor cabinet based on things we found at Pretentious Drinking. And this year, we both just like, I don't know that I care. We don't have any champagne in the house, and I don't need to have a shot of Benedictine and brandy. So we had like tea and a soda pop or something, clinked those plasticky and ceramic glasses, and just cuddle on the couch and watch that, as well as watch like another episode of Castle that happened to be around the holidays. And I don't know, that's just what happens, right? You get to be 63 and you're like, I'm okay to not be elbow to elbow with people. I'm okay to not have the exhilaration of the ball hits and everybody does woo. We had our joy, and then we came home and had our calmness as well. And we still stayed up a little bit later. We didn't go to bed at 12:02, but it wasn't having to create that level of like manic fun. I guess we're past that now or something. Yeah. Anyway, I think it's mostly the crowd thing. It isn't. I don't like. I don't like the.
I agree.
we were worried when we're driving home. It's like we saw any number of people on the road that were not staying in their lane, and we gave them a wide berth. And
Yeah.
that's always the biggest worry, is that it's amateur night. Same with St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of people that they've been drinking since like 6 a.m, and now they're out driving their weapon home. We were very careful about getting home because it's all the way across town to get to Severance Hall from where we live. But,
Yeah, I didn't do a lot of driving, but I've been pretty good for the New Year so far. I mean, I didn't really make resolutions. I just had some things I wanted to do more of and change. So
Yeah.
I've been writing every day. I've been working on some of my programming projects, got most of the decorations down, and I'm organizing them and labeling things really well.
Yeah.
I've played piano and drums and guitar almost every day, which I said I wanted to do more of.
Exactly.
So,
Getting back into music, I don't have any place to do that here. I have my Casio big CZ1 keyboard that is kind of like buried. I don't have even the ability to hook up a monitor to it and have electricity to it. And so I miss it terribly, but not enough to have said, then let's clear a dedicated space. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Our house doesn't allow for a studio until I get my act together and clear a lot of my clutter out,
well,
that kind of thing. So
I got for Christmas, I don't know if I mentioned those pocket drums. So it's just a
Yeah.
pair of drumsticks and you can
play that anywhere there's a switch.
Yeah.
Good for you.
So
Music is such an my musical New Year was I listened to Kansas.
I saw that.
First 6 Kansas albums in order.
Wow.
And honestly, they're like 50 years old. They started in 74, and yet, man, do they hold up well. They're complex, and Steve Walsh and Robbie Steinhardt, was one of those groups that actually had 2 lead vocalists, and yet they really were great at what kind of song is this, and do we want to have the rougher bluesy or the soaring operatic, or you know what I mean? Like, and they wrote great songs of multiple different topics and lengths. Not a lot of love songs. It was more like deeper stuff than that. So all the things that I loved about them when I first discovered them, they're still all there, as well as they're one of those groups that has a difficult history. They had multiple breakups and regatherings because of a couple of members of the band went really Christian and they wanted to make Christian rock. And that's like, wow, that's kind of taking us off the charts. And so they had to do some shuffling as to what. Anyway, it was a delight to go back to that and just hear songs that I've loved for a long time. Song for America is just an unbelievably good song. And I remember the first time I ever saw them was at a place called the Randhurst Ice Arena. And a good named Paul Garibaldi, he was good about finding new music, and especially we had similar enough taste so that I would turn him on to Michael Oldfield and he would give me Rush or Kansas or whatever. We went to a place where it was, one of those like they were finding new venues in Chicago because they had filled all the regular ones, but there was a huge surge in the mid-70s. They start off with a scrim all the way around the stage, and I think that it was in the round, but it might have just been like 3/4 around, and they have lights from the inside, so it's kind of opaque, and yet they would then lower the lights and you could see movement back there, and they do like little spotlights where there was activity, and there was music starting to play, like them tuning up but also breaking into songs and then backing off and going all the way into it. So it was just, for a young band, this was after their first 3 albums. Left Overture was not even out yet. It was phenomenal stage presence and phenomenal build up. And then they drop the scrim all at once and they go into Song for America. And it just was like, and there was nobody there because Left Overture was not out yet. That was their big breakthrough album.
Breakthrough, yeah.
Everybody that was there was a total fan. And everybody just like wet themselves with how fucking cool it was. And then 2 hours of great Kansas music, and everybody just like, it was one of the best concerts I've ever seen.
Nice.
in an ice arena, in a weird odd venue for that,
Def Leppard does something very similar. They have in the round. They do have in the round. They have a curtain up. One of my favorites was Rush, though. They actually got South Park, and they had Cartman. I think it's from an episode where Cartman wanted to be in Rush, and so they're playing Rush songs, and he counts off. He goes, and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and then everything. The lights come up, the curtains drop, and you hear that low E from Tom Sawyer. Boom! Yes. They go right into it. So that was a pretty awesome opening.
I've seen, we both, I'm sure, have seen so many concerts by now. And when you really see, like, uh, speaking of Cartman, he has like the thing where he has to sing the whole version of Come Sail Away whenever somebody starts it up.
Yes, yes.
I remember seeing Styx where they played like an hour and 10 minutes. They totally phoned it in. It was the most prefabricated
Wow.
nothing. Maybe they already weren't getting along. Maybe somebody was sick with the flu and they had to get off the stage. But that was one of those where, like, while it's going on, it's okay. And then the show just ends so abruptly, and everybody in the audience is going like, "Well, aren't they coming back? Like, how is it already now ending? Is this intermission? Is it?" And then they come back
Right.
for an encore. It's like that. So we've had Moody Blues. I saw two different times. One of which same thing. After maybe let's see, maybe after Seventh Sojourn or something, they really seemed to be tired, and then they took a break for a while, and they came back with whatever the album is that has Long Distance Voyager and Long Time No See, and they were just totally re-energized. Maybe it was Patrick Moraz, maybe it was whatever it was. It was like I really went with trepidation in my heart because I was like, are they going to fool me twice? I
Right.
really love their music, but am I really going to give them this chance to disappoint me again? And then we were just all smiles. So it's very cool when you've seen a group multiple times and you get to compare between. We saw Kansas besides that wonderful opening. I remember they had some tough times in the 90s where they were kind of off the charts, but they were still a
Right.
touring band. And we saw them at like Cream of Wheaton, one of those local state fair type things in Wheaton, Illinois. Cream of Wheaton, a very witty name.
That's
And it's just like, it's okay if they are playing out of 5,000 people instead of 50,000, but I'm here and they're still playing as if it matters. And so I loved discovering that there were certain bands that if you're worried about it, some bands are like the Revival where the whole band is dispersed, but somebody retains the name, the drummer, and he got a whole bunch of roadies to play with him now. And then I saw Steppenwolf where it was just a shadow of themselves. But there's others where they're still cooking. They're still doing great. And wow, you get a chance to see them from up close instead of from back in the
yes.
seats,
That's
So,
one of the things I tried to instill in the kids when they were doing music and taking lessons and stuff. I'm like, it's not just learning the notes. It's not just playing everything right. Sometimes it's okay to make a mistake if you're really putting your heart, soul, and energy into it. And there's no way you can learn that. There's no way you can teach it. You either have it or you don't. You hear it or you don't. And we went to the Streetsboro Family Days, and there was a band playing, and it was a song we liked and stuff. And we're sitting there listening. The kids go, "This is boring." I'm like, "Yes, but they're hitting all the right notes. Do you see it now?" And
exactly.
I remember I went to a hair metal thing at Blossom back in the 90s. And this was after hair metal died and they were coming back. The one band,
right. Headbangers Ball no longer being done. But
right. I forget the name of the band. Call the Angels or Send Me the Angels, whatever. But that was like their only big hit. They were the opening group. And I was like, wow, these guys are awesome.
Okay.
He's running up and down there doing, like this sounds really good. Then Cinderella came on, and I never really listened to Cinderella. And I'm like, my gosh, this is some of the best bluesy rock I've heard in a long time. I became a big fan. I didn't like Cinderella until after Cinderella was dead. And then Dawkins came on, and they were the big openers. They were the big name. And I'm like, this is a boring. I mean, they stood there just playing, and it's like every song, album cut, move on to the next one. No,
right. The contractual obligation show. It
was horrible.
Oh boy.
But the opening bands were great. They loved being there. They wanted to do it, and that's a big difference.
Exactly. I'll tell you. There's so many stories. Colleen and I went to see the Black Crowes at the House of Blues.
They are so good, or were so good.
That's the problem. They weren't that night. I don't know what it was. The brothers weren't getting along because they're another contentious, like Oasis. There's all like the Kinks.
Yeah,
it was like, you know what I mean? It's kind of funny. People handle fame differently, and whatever else it might be. Living with someone for 30, 40 years ain't easy, and you were already doing it when you were kids, and you got all the kid issues. Having said that, I just was so happy. It's House of Blues. We're going to see this fantastic band in a small venue. And it was like, wow, this is going nowhere. They were just noodling around. It wasn't even good blues. It was like,
that's sad.
4 or 5, CGE. Oh, it was, I can't tell you how disappointed. And one of those things, like, I probably will see them again if they ever tour, because they've kind of broken up. And, now the brothers are doing various different things. And yet, that was one of those big disappointments as compared to, I remember we've had the privilege of being able to like Scene magazine in Cleveland is kind of like the Reader in Chicago. There's all kinds of great music coverage, and especially you go and you read the little, all the various different venues, and sometimes you'll find out, wow, Iron Butterfly is still going, and they're going to be at beginning.
They're still playing that one song. They haven't gotten to the end of it yet.
That's true, exactly that. Apparently, the drum solo continues, and yet there must have been like 2 different summers where I saw Los Lobos before they broke it big with, and it's kind of funny because it wasn't even really their song. Didn't Pee Wee Herman do the dun 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 dun,
Right.
tequila? Well, Los Lobos had 3 great albums before the world decided that they were worthy of notice. But I loved How Will the Wolf Survive anyway, and saw them like, I don't know, from me to the screen. We were like right on the edge of the stage and they were so good. And it's one of those things where I tried to convince all my friends, just please trust me. This band is so good. And even though you might think that you're going to hear like Mexicali music, they're more than that. They're the best of what's going on in that way. And saw Iron Butterfly, saw Spirit, like where some bands come, as long as it's still the distinctive vocalist, like the Guess Who, as long as it's Burton Cummings, they sound great. And we just recently, unfortunately, but in the last 6 months or so, saw the Guess Who where it was a different vocalist, and it was like, oh, they didn't talk about that in the advertising. I figured they wouldn't be allowed to use the Guess Who name. So, and it wasn't Randy Bachman either. And so it's kind of one of the things that I have always loved reading the liner notes and learning about who's in the bands, because then that's also an early warning system for like the Steppenwolf debacle, where it's like, well, it's not even John Kay. It's not anybody who wrote the songs or really is the distinctive guitar or
corporate
vocal
name.
Yeah, and it just someone has the name exactly. So we still have good luck in that regard here. There's some things like Nectar came to the Beachland Ballroom. And Nectar with a K, they're like a great German prog rock, kind of space rock. And they were not only great, they had the full multimedia extravaganza where they had like, moire patterns playing in the background, and so much that I thought I'd never get a chance to see live, because I'm pretty sure they're German, maybe Dutch, but they don't like leave Europe. And how they were enticed to come here and put together a little tour, and how that tour included Cleveland, I kind of couldn't believe it.
Cleveland has, MMS back in the day was a pretty powerful force. And that's the reason Rush came to America originally. It was Working Man. One of the
lured
DJs.
over the lake there, brought them over the lake area to here. Okay.
Yeah. And we've had that experience with First Snow. I went and saw it one year and I'm like, oh my gosh, this was as good as TSO. It sounded good, looked good, energetic, wonderful. And then we said, come on, you got to come with us. And we went with you the next year, and we got the intermission. We're looking at each other like, well, this kind of sucks, totally different, same group.
Yeah. I don't know. We're not looking, we're also very aware. So I don't know what's happened in your family, but both Colleen's and my family had people get COVID this year. Some people right after the Christmas gathering that we were at. And so I guess we're fully boosterized, and we just are lucky, hardy, whatever it might be, but we did not come down with it. But one guy really had to like go to the hospital and stuff because it was so in his lungs and all wrong. And on my brother's side, he had his son come up from Florida, and Bruce thinks he got it from like going to Walmart, when that wasn't the wise thing to do without a mask. And so, you know what I mean? And their holidays, we had this last year, that is the previous year to this last one, where we went down like a day after Christmas, and that's what we did between Christmas and New Year's, was recuperate, hide. We're wanting to, like, the world is kind of opening up. The world has kind of declared that we're in the endemic instead of the pandemic. I know I've talked about this before, but we got to be careful, because when we were at our James Bond concert, we stayed masked up. Even if it's people going to see the orchestra, there's just enough people that are certain they're right without doing the right thing. And that's just the state of our country, is what people we have that are just science resistant or uncaring about others. You know what I mean? There's a mentality,
or like you've said, this is my beliefs, and I'm only going to believe that no matter what you tell me.
Right.
This is what's right.
Unreachable. Yeah. Exactly. Now, soapbox time. This isn't the first time this has been around. Think of how many people think they're a good driver that suck. that are continually not paying attention or continually hyper aggressive and tailgating and cutting off and whatever. Think of every smoker in the world that for the last 50 years, 60 years, since we knew that smoking was bad for you and bad for others, people are just like, nope, I'm in service to my addiction and I can't stop. And so you get to share it. And it's really a shock now when, it's all banned in restaurants and stuff like that. But we've been at places where, for whatever reason, they just decided to not enforce it that night. And we're like, I'm getting out of here. I can't be in this anymore. I've had cancer. I don't need cancer again.
Right.
And it isn't only a venue where it's kind of anonymous. It's that we have people that we know that can't stop smoking, because if you're in that kind of thrall to an addiction, it affects everything that you do. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? You make concessions. You stop really caring about others because you've got to do what you're doing. And so there's whatever that mentality is, that willing to be addicted or willing to not care about others, it's still all out there. And nowadays you can't even ask, hey, have you been vaccinated? Because they would, they'll tell you, yeah, I was vaccinated. Well, they were vaccinated twice out of the 5 times they could have been. And so those variants that I guess if you don't believe in evolution, you don't believe in mutation either. And then you don't think that it's still out there and ravaging the world, despite a billion people in China now being in trouble
Right.
because you know what I mean? I just, oh well, oh well.
Well,
Colleen and I have to be careful enough for all of us, because people are not being careful truly
right.
for other people. You know what I mean? So,
FYI, and this reminds me, the last Tuesday in January, right before February, probably no episode because I'll be down in Florida at the yearly conference. But this is the first time we've had the conference in 3 years because of COVID. So, and we get people from other countries. And I know the management isn't wanting everybody to wear masks all the time because they feel it's impersonal, blah, blah. So we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I have been for a whole month. But I'm heading back to California on the 14th. I was really home for almost an entire month, and it is that being in the airport, being out in California where they got different cooties and people are not paying attention, and I need to be the one that's careful. I wear my mask all the time. I sit not where the gate is, but away, but where I can hear announcements. Just because the more that you and this is interesting. People, oh well, I'm philosophical this year about what's going on with people's brains, because I just got a pretty cool book about how being reasonable doesn't matter. I have all my life thought that if you get enough facts and get enough analysis, and you can come to a conclusion that everybody would just say, that's right, that's the best laundry detergent because Consumer Reports looked into that for you, and here's how it works on all these various different things. So why would you not buy that? Well, because my mom always bought Oxidol. Well, but it's not the best. Yeah, and it's
Right.
there really is that whole, you can lead people to water but can't a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And it has been a perpetual frustration, and it's just now that final realization of I don't think you can. I think that most people really do make up their mind and then gather supporting data for what they already think, and that the way in which they make up their mind is so specious, so flimsy in some cases, that I can't get frustrated by it anymore because it's breaking my heart. I just have to kind of say that I guess because I use Consumer Reports, I have an edge up on everybody because my washer is going to last for 15 years, not 5. And my car is better than yours. And my toothpaste is better. And maybe you luck out and get the same Crest Pro Health that I get. And yet that thing that I thought I was doing, even this whole, I just did my talk about how to, consume the best media. And yet I had someone in the audience that was willing to say, well, that's subjective. It's like, well, maybe if you heard all the rest of the talk, you found out that there are ways to take subjective in multiple instances and combine them together into an overall opinion from multiple learned sources. And you can really get to that's kind of what science is. It isn't just what you think and how hard you're willing to witness for something. It's how do you get to where there's shared facts and a shared conclusion for all this? And the people who immediately deny that, it's like, I guess there really is no reaching you. You don't use the scientific method or the opinions of others as well as your own, or that there's no value to expertise. There's so many flaws in how they act and think and operate. And yet one of those flaws is the Dunning-Kruger effect. When you're incompetent, you don't realize how incompetent you are at judging those kinds of things.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I hate to think of, I'm going to write off some 50% of the world, but that's what the votes tell me, is that how much of the world just doesn't try to make the world make sense and be consistent and correspond to known facts. So off soapbox, but I just here's hoping that there'll be enough people that are saying, I really would like to know what some of the good books are to read and good movies are to see and good TV shows to watch, because I can't get through it all on my own. And I'd rather that I don't know, at least hedge my bets. It's not that you then become a slavish devotee of Roger Ebert, but it's like, wow, there's at least a way to hedge your bets on all these things. And that
Right.
itself is a way of thinking about it, that it's percentages. It's not yes or no, right or wrong. But if I'm going to watch 10 things, I'd like 7 or 8 of 10 to be good, instead of, if it's just random, then what will random give you? Maybe 5?
Right.
You know what I mean? So, oh well.
So speaking of best movies and best and good, Avatar's out, and I take it you saw it. So the first Avatar, it was like 10 years ago, right? What
Right.
didn't it come out? And
Yes.
it kind of ushered in the new 3D. It kind of
Exactly, where it's very well done and immersive, instead of being tacked on after filming, where they do camera trickery, processing
yes.
trickery, make it that things come out of the screen at you.
And
It,
what I liked about it was it wasn't so much I threw something and it bursts out at you. That was, 3D. This was more depth. It gave you everything looked like it was, a depth to the whole screen and not so much things popping out. And I liked that a lot.
that's exactly what I thought too, that if you're going to show flying or swimming or various different things where depth of fields really matters, he did it fantastically. Whatever the new cameras are that he's working with and however he stages his shots to capture that kind of stuff, the action is like that it's not two guys kind of like sword fighting, where it really is kind of like a side scroller video game, but that
Right.
instead it's swooping around and being in each other. And the fact that some of the stuff, it wasn't, oh, a spear coming at you from the screen. It was, there's like a fire and there's little flinders in the air, and they look like they're in your air. They
Right.
look like they're in your space. How
It was like
that is.
it
You know
was
what I mean?
using 3D maturely as opposed to just it's a gag. And I think the same thing, the thinking was, oh, 3D is a fad, we'll just throw these gags in, that's what'll get people in. That's what they used to think of, like superhero movies. Oh, it's a kid's superhero movie, just
Right.
do whatever with it, it's goofy. And then someone made a good one that was mature and people went, oh, that's
Right.
pretty good. And Cameron did the same with 3D. It's like, oh, that's really good. So it changed things. And that was what I liked about the original. I didn't think the story of the movie itself was anything super. It was okay, but
Yeah.
without the 3D, it was kind of like, eh. So what's this
The
new
reason
one
that I
like?
would see it again is to see it like, yeah. Colleen really didn't like it because the story was shallow. It really was like, what, if you're going to go with a sequel, you kind of you shouldn't just retell the original story with a new 2% change or something like that. But that was so much what this one was. It was once again the colonial, resource abusers trying to take over a planet, and the noble savages on the planet are fighting for their life, their livelihood. It's visual candy. It is not great story, but good. It's not terrible. It just isn't. The story isn't as good as the breakthrough technology that we just talked about. So I don't know what people have expectations of movies. I don't mind going to a place where it's like, wow, I've never seen that on screen before. That can be enough for me. Will I
Yeah.
see it? Kind of like the people that saw Titanic 100 times. It's like, it wasn't good enough story to be like 5 times, much less 100. And yet, not my taste is not everybody's. Cameron has done better movies. Aliens was really great. Terminator really great. He, maybe because he's so into the technology now, he's immersed in it, distracted by it, and doesn't like. And if he's the one that's kind of doing the screenplay, instead of bringing in better screenwriters and helping them punch it up and tell a better story, but he's an auteur, kind of like Rodriguez, Robert Rodriguez, that he's really great at making movies where he does everything. He does not only the filming and the editing, but he does the soundtrack, and he does like the
Right.
kids' costumes and everything, for all I know. And yet, so it's really fun to see a particular vision. But it's also that while there really are, maybe you're not the best at everything. Like when somebody like Eddie Murphy plays every role in a movie like Jerry Lewis used to, like that kind of stuff. And it's, I guess it's an interesting thing when you see how people can be that mercurial to take on multiple different roles, like Alec Guinness has done. I mean, we can start naming. There's Peter Sellers did it. And so it's a stunt to see that you really can lose yourself in that many different roles and be convincing in all of them. But there's also something to be said for bring in your cronies that are really good at what they do too, and make sure
Right.
that the soundtrack really serves the movie and things like that. Anyway, I don't know. We're jumping around. John Carpenter has always done the movie music, and his music is great. He's really accomplished at knowing what makes for good movie music.
He's
You know what I mean? So-
great in a different way from like John Williams. John Williams
Absolutely.
puts this stuff that's huge, and it's such a part of the movie that without the music, the movie almost doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Carpenter is simpler. He's not the big orchestra so much, but he has just what's needed to set the mood. And sometimes that's all you need. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to go back and listen to the soundtrack for Halloween because it's some great tunes as
Right.
opposed to Star Wars.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is, the people that are really good at that, the kind of the motif, the hook, it's like when you think of Halloween, you really do the,
Yeah.
Like you can hear Psycho and other things that were such an arresting part of the movie. Anyway, I think that Colleen and I are going to get, look, one of the things we look forward to as the new year blossoms is there's going to be like the Oscar nominations, and we love going to see the Oscar shorts. You know what I mean? Where it's the documentaries and the animations and the short subjects. And it's a big part of the Oscars. There's incredible high quality, but they're not that well known. And so we like to be out there in support of that. You know what I mean? We're looking forward to the Banff Mountain Film Festival, much like what you said about your conference. That used to be, it happens in Banff, but then they take it on the road. They gather the best of the festival and they do like a 2-hour programs, and we go see them all. Well, can't do that in an auditorium full of like, please don't cough on me. And so here's hoping that those things have been revived, and that even if it has been, we will wear our masks and be careful and stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to that little bit of return to normalcy. We actually have a cruise coming up in, I think, September, October, where we're supposed to go to the Baltic and do a bunch of, and I'm just hoping so much that the world doesn't have a resurgence in a new variant, a new mutation of COVID, or that Ukraine hasn't blossomed into a full-scale war of all of, you know what I mean? There's so many things that can go wrong. And as if my cruise doesn't matter as much as any of those big things, but it is our thing that we're looking forward to. And I'm so hoping that the world calms down and gets decent and rational instead of, nope, the crazies won. We're going to World War III.
Yeah,
oh
please, no.
You know what I mean? I just, So we will, on that small scale, it's like we're going to do all kinds of outdoor stuff, like I mentioned, some snowshoeing and stuff like that. But also everywhere that we want to go to a comedy club, there's people coming to comedy clubs, and be careful. We will continue to be careful, I guess, because we want to do more. We want to,
like we've said for the last 2 years.
I don't want to give it up.
Like we said, the last 2 years, it's going to be an interesting year. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. So let's see, what do we have on our list?
Let's see, what do we have on our list?
Let's see. We covered New Year's. We got
calendars, strategies.
Oh yeah, I think we might have talked about this in previous incarnations. I love calendars, multiple calendars, because I like seeing new artwork on my walls every month. And I went out as usual, like post Christmas, maybe even post New Year's. I should have waited because some places were 40% off instead of 50. Those bastards. And so, but I got all kinds of national parks and all kinds of fractals and all kinds of superheroes. All of my quirky interests are represented by getting a calendar that represents kind of each one of those. And so they're up on the walls now. I should turn off my backdrop so you can see that, here's where I've got my Marvel superhero, and I got, I won't go into it, except it seems like a small thing, like for $7, if you get it for a $15 calendar for half off, you get like for 60 cents a month, you get cool new artwork. And I love my optical illusions. I love my national parks. I love my mandalas. It's just kind of cool. I don't know anybody else that does it really. Most people get like one calendar because they use it as a calendar.
Right.
They're keeping track of their dates and appointments. But somehow that thing of, I like variety. And this is a way, instead of buying a piece of art and putting it up and that's what I get a new Leonardo or Michelangelo every month. I get a new
Are
Dali.
you talking the artist or the turtles?
Yeah. I should do that. But no, I like you go to the fine art section of the calendars, and it's like, I like Magritte. I like, and in some cases, things that I really like, they don't put them out every year. So I'm like beset by, wow, I really was looking forward to having I don't know, certain things that I like to see, even if I've had them up before. I
Right.
just like being able to see that level of quality. So, boy, I'm once again sorry about this. I really need to use the restroom.
Go,
Okay,
go
back in a minute.
quick.
Wow. Yes, but not. I'll finish my podcast and then I'll. Oh boy. Well, that was ridiculous. You know, one of the things about getting older is that just becomes an issue. I'm a grown man, and yet if you have a little bit of caffeine in the morning, my body is very efficient in saying that's a diuretic. Here we go.
Yeah. Well, it's not only that though, but diabetic also that happens that it's a sign of diabetes. So,
I
oh,
think so.
speaking of, okay. So, for Christmas, I mentioned my mother got me a pizza stone,
Yes.
even though I've been trying to avoid lots of bread carb type stuff.
Carby
Like,
things, exactly.
so I ordered the carbulose flour and I had some wheat flour and I mixed it to try.
Okay.
And it was King Arthur wheat with some carbulose, like you recommended. I'm going to work on adjusting the amounts of each so it has a good consistency and texture, but lower carbs and
Right.
stuff. So I normally, if I have like Giannino's, I order pizza delivery and I eat 2 pieces. My blood sugar is 160 and up. It could be 180, and it just depends on the day, whatever. So I ate the 2 I made homemade with the carbulose. Again, I want to adjust it a bit, but it was 144. And I was like, oh, well, it's better.
It
So
really does help a little bit. That's
yeah.
cool.
So, but that was
I
with
know.
more of the wheat flour than the carbulose. So I'm going to try and adjust it and see if I can get more carbulose. And, if I'm in the 130s after I ate a couple pieces of pizza and stuff, I'll be fairly happy. But
There you
here's
go.
the weird thing. You want to know the crazy ass thing? I've been
Yes.
eating oatmeal every morning and I did it this morning and my blood sugar was 114. Okay. That's very acceptable. I'm good with that. Right.
Yeah.
Last night, I still had some of my ice cream cake from my birthday last month. So I said, I don't care. I'm going to have a piece of that, but I'm going to check my sugar afterwards. You want to know what my blood sugar was after eating ice cream cake?
How about terrible, like 300?
Try like 105.
How
Explain
does that
it.
work?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because ice cream cake is mostly fat, not sugar.
Maybe.
It's high butter fat ice cream and stuff like that. Okay.
But that's the thing. That's what
Wow.
I've told people you got to check this stuff because
Yeah.
in that regard, I could eat ice cream cake, but I better avoid mashed potatoes because they're horrible for me. So that's why you got to check, because it could have been maybe because I ate a bigger salad for dinner, it didn't affect as much with the ice cream cake later, or because I exercised earlier in the day. It's why you got to check this stuff to know, not because I'm worried or anxious and paranoid, but I want to know, hey, this ice cream cake didn't affect me. Next time I can have a bigger piece. But if I'm going mashed potatoes, I better just go easy on it,
Exactly. For a while I've never stuck fingers, but for a while I was wearing my Libre device, and that gave me a good. I have not worn it as consistently because 90% of the time I was in my target range. I had certain things that spiked me, and like you said, I learned that if I'm going to go out for sushi, all that rice will really affect me more than I would have ever expected. I thought I was eating mostly meat and things like that, but it's I really should start the new year off in data gathering mode again, and like say, well, if you're in hibernation mode and you're eating more, I don't know, my breakfast I've kind of switched over to being very keto. I have like little omelets and little sandwiches that are like, with turkey sausage and stuff like that. And I make all of our breads with carbulose flour for half of the bread flour and stuff, but there still have to be things. We just had leftovers from the family Christmas, and like some of them were potatoes, some of them were whatever. I should examine each of those things in the same way. And I guess if I make a platter so that it's like, well, most of the stuff is safe. If it goes up, it must be the potatoes, right? I hope that's the case, instead of the few onion things on top of your green bean casserole. You know what I mean?
Right.
These did me in. It'd be worth. I stopped doing it because I was satisfied with what I had learned, but I don't have all of my data in. I really should put it on, like I should do it while I'm in California, and say, if I'm doing more eating out, more fast food, is there any safe fast food? You know what I mean? I'm trying to be careful about that, but I know that it's got to be worse than at home, where I really control what I'm putting in.
Right. And so that's the other thing. People, and we've talked about this, we know this, but people think, oh, that's sugar-free, that's okay, I'll have that. No, that's not always the case. Hot chocolate is a great example. So if Swiss Miss hot chocolate, it's ridiculous. It's like 34, 40 or something carbs per cup of hot chocolate. And that's just like, woo. But the sugar-free isn't too much better. It's like 24. So it's like, if the carbs is the main thing, not the sugar, like people should know, then sugar-free, that's not a big difference. But Nestle hot cocoa is like 14 carbs per glass.
So they found a way to centrifuge the chocolate down to have the essence of chocolate, but not all the carbs.
It tastes way better than the sugar-free Swiss Miss. Sugar-free Swiss Miss tastes like ass, whereas Nestle hot chocolate at least tastes like hot chocolate. But, that's the thing. You look at that stuff and people like, oh, fat-free, it's healthier. Well, not necessarily. Sugar-free is not healthier. Gluten, you got to look at this stuff. We've, prophesied this to everybody for the last 2 years. It's really looking at that, because I got out the Nestle hot chocolate and somebody's like, well, that's got sugar. And I'm like, yeah, so? Well, aren't you diabetic? I'm like, look at this. And I explained it to them and they didn't grasp it. I'm like, I'll check my blood sugar. I'll show you. This will not spike me like you think it will. So, it's those things you got to learn.
Yeah. If anything, one of the reasons for getting back on the horse is a lot of people, myself included, it's the holidays, and so you kind of give yourself a break. But now that you're back in the new year mode, it's time to relearn some good lessons and relearn what you should and shouldn't have in the house, have while you're at a restaurant, whatever else it might be. So
and diabetes, from what I've learned, what I've lived over the last couple of years, it really is simple. It's not difficult. Lose some weight so you're in your target range. Exercise, because that helps your blood and keep the metabolism
the whole day, not just while you're doing it, but it has whole day effects. Exactly.
Right. And just watch the carbs. Don't go spastic and crazy like you can never have a single carb. We're not cheerleaders or anything, just watch. That's it. That's all you really have to do. Put some more green vegetables on instead of some cake. It's simple. It really is not that difficult.
Yeah. I still out of peace of mind, refer to myself as pre-diabetic because I continue to stay under 7 and I haven't ever advanced to where I really need insulin and various other things, but I'm on multiple prescriptions to help me with that, and I'm working on losing weight. One of the good things about it is out of preventative maintenance, my doctor has me do all the things that check to see if there's any signs of diabetes. I just was at a podiatrist and there was nothing. I don't have any numb toes, no, oh, you broke a toe and didn't realize it, because none of that.
Right.
And whatever, like, they do a little stick test, and I could feel every one of those things poking into my foot. I went to the ophthalmologist, and I did for the retinal retinopathy, where you can actually start to affect, and no problems there. So it's not only that my numbers are good, it's that also the ways in which it evidences itself that really start to fuck with your life. I don't have any of that yet. I am chubby. I need to lose some weight still, but luckily I've arrested it soon enough that it hasn't advanced, instead of my just saying, oh, it's fate. You know what I mean? No, I really do want to be hiking and not worry about that. I got a blister and then I didn't even realize I had a blister and really screwed myself up. I won't let that happen.
And people don't realize the glucose and the metabolizing in your blood, if that's spiking and how horrible that really is. I saw my father go through that. And I'll grant you, my father was a medical miracle. He lived to 84. They didn't think he'd reach 60. So, that was something, but it really did mess with his health a lot, and I'm hoping to avoid most of that, all of that, if I can. And I'd love a friend of mine had gout and they gave him medicine, and he said, I don't want to take medicine. And he changed his lifestyle and lost weight, eats healthy, and does not have to take any medicine because he has no symptoms. I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I have no diabetic symptoms and I don't have to take medicine. That's probably just not in my genetics, but I might be able to lower it some. I might be able to control it much better. Right. So, it
isn't only about diabetes. It's also like everything that you're doing to fight the diabetes is helping you. Your lung and heart function is better. Everything about how your body processes things, your internal organs are happier because you're not pounding them with overwork. You know what I mean? You don't. Diabetes is, your body loses the ability to produce insulin correctly in proper homeostasis response. And all that is important. Anything you can do to make your endocrine system work correctly instead of being out of kilter. And so for both of us, that, losing weight and watching all these things, it's just, I'm not happy that I have pre-diabetic stuff, but it sure is all the things I'm doing to combat it are having multiple benefits, and I'm happy about that.
It can be
my share of atrial fibrillation. I don't need to go through that crap again. I don't need cancer again. I there's that top 10 list of things to die from, and I don't need to tick off each of those. I need to be like, I've had enough. How would if I calm the heck down and I stick around so I can be with Colleen longer, so I can read books, all that stuff.
So hey, before we go, something we started long ago and we never kept up with, I want to try and bring it back and do it. We used to do top 10 list and put it up on the website. Here's our this, here's our that, here's whatever. Let's try and do that. Maybe we don't have to do it every week, but maybe every month we get something. So I thought of 2 that would be perfect for us to start with, since we just got done with the holidays. Come up with our top 10 favorite Christmas songs and why they're our Christmas song. It could be anything, and then also let's do our top 10 favorite James Bond songs, since you went to James Bond. And then maybe later, I thought we could do Star Wars, but I'm like, who really knows all the classical Star Wars stuff? So James Bond is a better choice.
So that's a great idea. And I'm with you on that. Now, when we first started this up, it was like, let's try it. You know what I mean? Would this format work for us? Would we get along? All that kind of stuff. We're now 130 plus episodes.
Close.
Something up there. So that's, more than 2 years worth of stuff. It would be great to start fleshing out the website, make it so that it's, interesting to visit, not just to pick up the latest copy of this, but that we start to accumulate some of the artifacts that we've talked about. And so, yes, top 10 lists and recommendations. And I don't know, you're great at, when we do summaries of the episodes, to mention things, but I should pop in there and say, well, and if you're interested, here's where to get it on Amazon. Here's where you know what I mean? Here's the if this band is touring, here's the tour schedule or whatever
Yeah.
else it might be.
Yeah.
It'd be kind of fun to make that a nice geeky destination
Yes.
for a clearinghouse for that kind of information. And I don't know, I'm rusty with web editing, and so I need to get out there and like take a look at how things are and hope to like change things without screwing up.
Oh, it's easy. I'll look up and resend you all the credentials.
Okay.
And
That would be very helpful.
yeah. And so so let's do
Create
that.
my
Let's
little
get
test environment here. You know, like honestly, I'm the ways in which I'm rusty is not only just the act of doing it, it's the discipline that comes from, you don't just do it online, you do it in development, then you test the heck out of it, and then you,
right.
you
Well,
graduate it
With
online
WordPress,
also.
it's just as easy as add a new page and put down the page so it doesn't affect other stuff, you know.
Okay,
So
that's true
let's
too.
do that. Top 10 Christmas songs, our favorite personal favorites, and
Right,
top
and
10
James
or,
Bond.
or as many as we can get, you know, out of 30 movies or whatever it is.
I was just saying, and so not only the songs, but like the favorite movies, right? Is that where we're
Sure. Top 10 James Bond, whatever.
I could do two different lists, because I really do have, you know, for those who only know Daniel Craig, there really was some good James Bond before that. And,
Yes.
and what a just a great historic thing to go back to say when Jaws was in it, when you know, Odd Job was in it. Some part of makes a good James Bond movie is the quality of the villain. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So that's I'm gonna have to do a little review there. I might have to rewatch a few movies. Oh
Oh,
no.
darn.
Okay.
All right. So cool,
All right.
man.
Very
So,
good. Happy New Year, Steve.
Happy New Year to you.
Very good.
You have been listening
We'll
to
see
the
you next
Relentless Geekery podcast. Come back next week and join Alan and Steven's conversation on geek topics of the week.